Ever wonder what really goes into getting your favorite snack from the factory floor to your pantry?
Hmm.
This deep dive we're about to do, it's all about peeling back the wrapper, so to speak, on the world of food production planners. We've got a stack of resources from RoleCatcher. They do career guides, the whole 9 yards.
Yeah.
But their stuff on food production planners, it's a gold mine.
It really is. What struck me right away is how different this role is from just, say, following a recipe. These food production planners, they're practically orchestra conductors, making sure the whole production process is a symphony of efficiency and safety.
Okay, so not just someone with a mean sourdough starter then.
Right.
We're talking next level organization,
Yeah.
risk management. The guide even mentioned HACCP certificate, like it's a badge of honor. What even I is that?
Think of it like this: HACCP stands for Hazard Analysis and Critical Control Points. It's a system, a really thorough one, to spot and manage any potential problems in food production. Every step, from the raw ingredients coming in to the final product going out, there are checks and balances to make sure things are squeaky clean, literally.
So, peace of mind for us snackers, brought to you by HACCP. Got it. But the guide dives into the career ladder too, yeah. They've got these example profiles. Starting as a food production assistant, sounds like you'd be knee-deep in the action from day one. Totally. Assisting with inventory, quality control. You're not just shadowing, you're getting your hands dirty, learning how everything ticks. The guide describes it as the perfect way to build a solid foundation in the field. And then climb that ladder you do. They talk about becoming a food production coordinator, where you're actually creating those crucial production plans. Talk about pressure. It takes a special blend of meticulous planning and flexibility. The guide stresses how important it is to work closely with different teams: procurement, logistics, even sales and marketing. It's a very interconnected role.
So it's not all spreadsheets and hairnets then. There's actual peopling involved.
Oh, yeah, big time. While crunching numbers is part of it, the guide really highlights the need for strong interpersonal skills. You're the bridge between departments, suppliers, everyone, really.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Can't keep those production lines humming if everyone's not singing from the same recipe book. Speaking of which, the guide mentioned tech is changing the game. Like robots making cookies level tech.
It's true. The guide highlights automation, going digital, even hints at artificial intelligence being used more and more. Food production planners need to be comfortable with all that, or they'll get left behind.
AI in the kitchen. My mind's a little blown. But it sounds like this career path, it's a wild mix of knowing your food, knowing your tech, and being able to solve problems on the fly.
That's a great way to put it. And the potential for growth in this field, huge, especially if you're adaptable, tech savvy, and really care about food safety.
This is making me hungry for knowledge A&D snacks. Before we break out the chips and dip, let's talk interview prep.
Yeah.
RoleCatcher has a whole section on it, right? What kind of questions are these aspiring food production gurus facing?
They go deep. Everything from technical know-how to those curveball, tell me about a time when questions. One that stood out. Imagine production goes haywire. How'd you fix it? Talk about a pressure cooker.
Yikes. That's where you separate the short order cooks from the master chefs, right?
Exactly. It's about staying calm, thinking on your feet, finding solutions fast to get things back on track. And don't forget, every minute counts when you've got a production line down.
And communication's got to be key there, right? Can't exactly send up smoke signals when the dough starts hitting the fan.
The guide really emphasized that, being able to clearly explain the problem, your solution, and any delays. That's crucial. It's about keeping everyone in the loop.
So this role, it's a dash of tech wizard, a sprinkle of people whisperer, and maybe a whole lot of crisis-averting superhero.
You got it. And RoleCatcher does a good job showing both the hurdles and the highlights of this career path. It's not just about loving food, it's about managing the whole system that gets it to us.
Okay, so we've established it's not just about knowing your spices from your seasonings. They also have this section on alternative job titles, right? So a food production planner might be called something totally different.
It happens. They mention production planner, production scheduler, even supply chain planner. Seems like the core tasks overlap, just with different names.
Good to know. So job seekers, don't limit your search to just one title. Cast a wide net.
Exactly. It's all about finding the right environment for your skills and interests, whether it's called food production planning or something totally different.
Speaking of skills, let's break down what RoleCatcher says you need to rock this role. They get pretty specific, don't they?
Oh yeah, and some of it might surprise you. While knowing the ins and outs of food production is crucial, it actually ranks as the third most important knowledge area. It only scored a 72%.
Third, what could be more important than knowing how the sausage gets made?
Get this. Customer and personal service snagged second place, with a 66% importance rating.
And customer service. But this role's mostly behind the scenes, right? What's the deal there?
That's what I thought. But when you think about it, food production planners are always working with others, suppliers, internal teams, maybe even clients in some cases. Being a good communicator, responding quickly, and keeping everyone happy probably makes the whole system run smoother.
Okay, that makes sense. So if customer service is number 2, what could possibly top that?
Drumroll, please. It's knowing your ABCs, while technically native language, with a whopping 66% importance score.
You're telling me speaking English is more important than understanding HACCP plans and production schedules.
According to RoleCatcher, yeah.
Okay, I'm officially intrigued. Why is being fluent so important for a job that's about, well, food?
It all boils down to how vital clear communication is in food production. You're dealing with complex processes, strict regulations, tons of moving parts. One miscommunication could mean costly mistakes, delays, even safety issues.
So it's not just about speaking the language, it's about speaking the language of the factory floor. Gotcha. Okay, we've got customer service, we've got plain old English. What else rounds out the top 5 must-have knowledge areas?
Coming in at number 4 is administration, with a 63% importance score. Think organization, attention to detail, keeping meticulous records. Basically everything you need to make sure a food production facility runs like a well-oiled machine. Pun intended.
Makes sense. Chaos in the kitchen is one thing, but chaos on a production line, recipe for disaster, literally.
Exactly. And last but not least, we've got administration and management at 56%. So understanding business principles, managing resources, even having some leadership skills are becoming more valuable in this field.
So we're not just talking about folks who can bake a mean batch of cookies. We're talking future leaders of the food industry. Interesting.
It's a whole other side of the culinary world for sure. Speaking of other sides, RoleCatcher also has this list of transferable skills, things food production planners do that could apply to other careers too.
This is perfect for anyone listening who might be into food, but isn't sure if this exact role is their jam. So what kind of skills are we talking about? Give us the goods.
They mentioned being able to adjust production levels on the fly, analyzing processes for improvement, using statistical methods, even spotting bottlenecks before they cause a whole shutdown.
Okay, those are some pretty specific skills. Where else could you use those besides, say, a factory making potato chips?
Think about industries that rely on efficiency and solving problems quickly. Manufacturing, logistics, managing a supply chain, even project management in different fields. The ability to look at data, find what needs fixing, and then actually fix it, those are valuable skills anywhere.
That's a great point. Even if you don't end up whipping up a new energy bar or something, the experience you gain on the food production line, it's like a secret weapon for other careers.
Totally. And that's something I think people forget when they're thinking about their careers. It's not just about the job title, it's about the skills you pick up along the way and how you can use those later on.
Okay, before we get too far down that rabbit hole, let's get back to our main course, food production planning. We've covered a lot of ground here, but one thing that really caught my attention was how technology is changing the game in this field. You mentioned AI and automation earlier.
They touched on that briefly, but it's definitely worth a deeper dive. It's not just science fiction anymore, it's the reality of food production. Think self-driving cars. But for snacks, we're talking robotic arms sorting ingredients, AI algorithms predicting the perfect batch size. It's about making things faster, safer, and more efficient.
Okay, now I'm picturing a robot version of that one friend who always brings the perfect dish to potlucks. You know, the one. Always perfectly measured, not a crumb out of place.
Exactly. But the thing is, even with all this cool tech, the guide kept emphasizing the human side of things. It's almost like a paradox. The more high-tech food production gets, the more those good old-fashioned soft skills matter.
Right, because even the fanciest robot can't replace good communication or teamwork. Or at least not yet. They haven't invented a robot that can handle a last-minute supplier snafu with grace and a smile.
And that's where emotional intelligence comes in, which RoleCatcher highlighted. This isn't just about knowing your stuff. It's about reading the room, keeping a cool head when things go wrong. Think of it as the secret ingredient for success in this field.
Emotional intelligence. So it's like having a sixth sense for when the production line is about to have a meltdown. And knowing exactly how to calm everyone down. Sign me up for that class.
Yeah.
But how do they even measure that in a food production planner?
It's more about recognizing its importance. The guide gave some interesting examples, like imagine there's a sudden ingredient shortage, a real crisis. The emotionally intelligent food production planner, they don't just panic, They quickly assess the situation, communicate clearly with everyone involved, and find a workaround, maybe even by substituting an ingredient without compromising the final product.
So they're like culinary ninjas, part food scientist, part diplomat, all while dodging metaphorical kitchen fires.
Yeah.
That's impressive.
Right, and it shows that this job is about so much more than just the technical stuff. It's about leadership, adaptability, and being able to handle whatever curveballs get thrown your way, whether it's a tech glitch or a human error.
Makes you appreciate the complexity behind that bag of chips a little more, doesn't it? But okay, let's talk career progression for these culinary ninjas. RoleCatcher outlines a whole path, right? Starting with the food production assistant we mentioned earlier, then moving on up.
They do. And it's really interesting to see how the responsibilities and expectations evolve as you climb the ladder. They start by highlighting the food production coordinator, who's responsible for developing and implementing those all-important production plans. It's a step up from assisting and requires a whole different level of ownership and decision-making.
So you're not just following recipes anymore. You're basically writing the cookbook for the entire production line. Talk about pressure. What comes after that?
Well, the guide then talks about the food production supervisor role. At this level, you're not just managing plans, you're managing people, too. Think overseeing teams of production staff, ensuring quality control, troubleshooting any issues that pop up. It's a very hands-on leadership position.
Okay, so now you're not just writing the cookbook, you're also training the cooks and making sure they don't burn the lasagna. Got it. What's the view like from the top of this career ladder?
Well, according to RoleCatcher, the pinnacle is often the food production manager role. Here, you're basically the maestro of the entire orchestra. You're setting strategic direction, managing budgets, overseeing all aspects of production. It's a high responsibility, high impact position.
From assistant to manager, talk about a glow up. It seems like the possibilities for growth in this field are huge. But let's be real, not everyone's cut out to be the head honcho.
Yeah.
Some people might prefer to specialize in the specific area, right?
Absolutely. And RoleCatcher actually addresses that too. They talk about how, as food production planners gain experience, they might choose to focus on a particular niche, like quality control, process optimization, or even sustainable production practices.
So you could become the go-to guru for, say, making sure every potato chip is perfectly seasoned, or figuring out how to reduce waste in the cookie-making process.
Exactly. And this kind of specialization can lead to some really interesting and rewarding career paths. It's about finding that sweet spot where your passions and skills intersect with the needs of the industry.
I like that, finding your sweet spot. It's like choosing your flavor in the food production world. But speaking of flavors, RoleCatcher also mentioned something about how this whole field is being impacted by another big trend, sustainability.
Right. It's not just about producing food efficiently anymore. It's about producing it responsibly, too. Consumers are getting more and more conscious about where their food comes from and how it's made.
So it's not just about the taste, it's about the impact.
Exactly. And that's where food production planners who understand sustainability come in. They're the ones who can help companies reduce their environmental footprint, source ingredients ethically, and create products that are good for both people and the planet.
So you could say they're not just planning for production, they're planning for the future.
Precisely. And that's what makes this field so exciting right now. It's at the forefront of innovation, technology, and changing consumer demands.
This has been fascinating, truly. We've gone from robots making cookies to talking about saving the planet, all in one episode. But before we get too existential on a full stomach, any final thoughts on the career of a food production planner?
It's a career path with a lot of ingredients for success. A blend of technical skills, problem-solving abilities, and that crucial human touch.
And it's a field that's only going to get more important as the world population grows and the demand for food continues to rise.
Absolutely. So if you're looking for a career that's both challenging and rewarding, and you're passionate about food and making a positive impact, this might just be the perfect recipe for you.
It's really incredible when you think about it. We take for granted just grabbing a bag of chips or a box of cookies from the shelf. But there's a whole universe of planning and innovation behind those everyday snacks.
Absolutely. And what we've learned from diving deep into these resources from RoleCatcher is that the role of a food production planner is evolving faster than ever.
It's like they're trying to stay one step ahead of our ever-growing appetites while also making sure those appetites don't cost the planet.
Exactly. And that brings us to something else that RoleCatcher highlighted, the growing importance of data analysis in this role.
Okay, so we've got robots, AI sustainability, now data analysis is being added to the mix. It sounds like these food production planners need a degree in, like, Everything.
Well, maybe not everything, but definitely a healthy dose of analytical skills.
So it's not just about knowing how to follow a recipe anymore. It's about knowing how to read the data, spot trends, and make decisions based on hard numbers.
Precisely, think about it. With all these advancements in technology, food production generates a ton of data. Everything from ingredient costs to production times to consumer preferences.
And all that data is just useless unless someone knows what to do with it, right?
Exactly. And that's where a skilled food production planner comes in. They can take all that data, analyze it, and use it to optimize everything from reducing waste to improving product quality to even predicting future demand.
So it's like having a crystal ball for the food industry, but instead of magic, it's data.
Pretty much. And this ability to interpret data and turn it into actionable insights, that's what's going to separate the good food production planners from the great ones in the years to come.
This is all fascinating stuff, but I have to admit, it's also a little bit daunting. It's like the bar for what it takes to succeed in this field is constantly being raised.
It's true that the food production landscape is becoming increasingly complex, but I think that also makes it even more exciting.
Okay, so for those listening who are up for the challenge, any final words of wisdom from RoleCatcher on how to break into this field?
They actually offer some really practical advice. Networking is key. Attending industry events, connecting with people already working in food production.
So basically putting yourself out there and making those connections.
Exactly. They also highlight the importance of internships or entry-level positions to gain hands-on experience.
So even if you're not quite ready to be calling the shots on the production line, getting your foot in the door and learning the ropes is invaluable.
Absolutely. And finally, they stress the importance of staying curious, continuously learning about new technologies, trends, and challenges in the food production world.
So basically, never stop learning, which is pretty good advice for any career, really.
Couldn't agree more.
Well, this deep dive has been quite a journey from robots in the kitchen to the power of data. We've covered it all.
We have, and hopefully we've given our listeners a new appreciation for what goes into bringing food to their tables.
And maybe even inspired a few future food production planners along the way.
I'd say so.
On that note, we'll wrap up this episode of The Deep Dive.
Until next time, happy planning, everyone.